Hello everyone, my name is Walter H. Coleman. I'm 81 years old, born and raised in Georgia, and I've lived long enough to know this truth. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it waits, quietly, patiently. And when it comes back, it doesn't knock, it breaks the door down. For most of my life, I believed I had done everything right. I worked hard, kept my name clean, raised my daughter with honesty, and stayed far away from trouble. I thought if you lived decent long enough, the world would leave you alone in old age. I was wrong. It started the day a man named Raymond Shaw entered my life, a man in his late 50s, polite smile, calm voice. Eyes that watched too closely. I didn't know it then, but that man had already been studying me for 2 years before we ever shook hands. And worse than that, he believed I was his father. The truth is, I didn't even know he existed. When my daughter Emily came to me shaking, telling me something was wrong about the man she'd married, I felt something old stir inside my chest. A warning, the kind you only get when you've lived long enough to recognize danger without proof. I hired a private investigator. His name was Frank Nolan, former police, sharp mind, didn't talk much. I told him everything I knew, which wasn't much. Frank listened quietly, writing in a small black notebook. When I finished, he closed it and looked me straight in the eyes. Have you already looked into Raymond's past? I shook my head. Only the basics, birth records, adoption papers, but I don't know who he really is. And I need to find his mother. I said her name slowly, like it might explode in the air. Helen Moore, a woman who vanished 40 years ago. Frank raised his eyebrows. Any photos of her? No, I said, just one thing. Before she disappeared, she told Raymond that I was his father. Frank leaned back. And are you? I held his gaze. I honestly don't know, but I will. He promised answers in 3 days. Those 3 days felt longer than entire decades. Emily and I stayed inside my apartment, curtains half drawn. She was afraid of running into Raymond. I was afraid of what he might already be planning. Every sound in the hallway made my heart jump. Every knock felt like judgment arriving early. On the third day at exactly 6 in the evening, Frank knocked. He walked in carrying a thick folder, heavy, too heavy. I found things, he said. His voice wasn't calm this time. Things you're not going to like. I sat down. Emily sat beside me and gripped my hand. Tell me, I said. Frank opened the folder. Raymond Shaw, born April 3rd, 1965. Mother, Helen Moore. Father, unknown. He spent his first 11 years at St. Luke's Children's Home here in Georgia. I nodded. That part I already knew. But here's what you didn't know, Frank continued. Someone paid for his entire stay. Food, clothing, education. The state didn't pay. I leaned forward. Who did? Frank slid an old yellowed bank receipt across the table. Margaret Coleman, my mother. The room went silent. She paid for him for 11 years, Frank said quietly. Then when he turned 12, she arranged for his adoption by the Delacroix family. Wealthy, influential, and she paid them well. I stood up and walked to the window, staring at the street without seeing it. Why? I whispered. Why would my mother do that? Frank closed the folder. There's only one reason a woman secretly funds a child's life for years and then erases him through adoption. I turned around slowly. Because she believed that child shared her blood. Emily stood up behind me, her voice trembling. But Grandpa was never with that woman. I know, Frank said, which is why I kept digging. He opened another folder, thinner, sharper. 2 years ago, he said, Raymond hired 3 different investigators, all to investigate you, your home, your finances, your routines. He spread photos across the table, photos of me leaving my house, at the bank, buying groceries. He's been watching you, Frank said, long before he met Emily. My stomach dropped. Why? I asked. Frank took a breath. Because someone told him you abandoned him, and he wanted revenge. And in that moment, sitting there at 81 years old, I realized something terrifying. The man my daughter married didn't come into our lives by accident. He came with a plan. And this was only the beginning. If you're listening this far, stay with me. Because what came next forced me to face a truth buried for 60 years, a truth that nearly destroyed my family before it finally set us free. After Frank left that night, sleep became impossible. Emily stayed in my apartment, curled up on the couch like a scared child, even though she was a grown woman. Every few minutes, she checked her phone, half expecting Raymond's name to light up the screen. It didn't. That silence was worse. I kept replaying Frank's words in my head. My mother, quiet, respected, church-going Margaret Coleman, the woman who raised me to believe truth mattered more than comfort, and yet she had hidden a child. Hidden him for 11 years, paid to erase him. The next morning I called Frank. I need more, I told him. Not theories, not assumptions. I need proof. I need to know who Raymond really is. Frank didn't hesitate. Then we need to find Helen Moore, I exhaled slowly. She disappeared 40 years ago. I know, he said, but people don't just vanish, they hide. And when they hide that long, it's usually because the truth would destroy someone. 3 days passed again. Slower this time, heavier. Emily refused to leave the apartment. She jumped at every sound. I barely went out myself, only for groceries, always checking reflections in windows, always feeling watched. Because deep down I knew Raymond was still out there, waiting. On the third evening Frank returned. This time he didn't knock, he used his key. I found her, he said the moment he stepped inside. I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. Where? A small town outside Birmingham, Alabama, he said. She's living under another name now, Carol Simmons, but it's her, I'm certain. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She's alive, yes, Frank said. 78 years old, alone, quiet life, no family listed. My heart pounded. After 60 years, she was alive. I'm going to see her, I said. Frank hesitated. Walter, you need to be careful. Raymond is also searching for her. That warning came too late. That night my phone buzzed. Unknown number, one sentence. I know you're digging into my past. Stop, or I end your future. Emily read it over my shoulder. Her hands started shaking. It's him, she whispered. I didn't respond. I saved the message because now I knew something important. Raymond wasn't just angry, he was scared. The next morning we packed, quietly, quickly, no calls. No neighbors. We left before sunrise, heading toward Birmingham, toward answers that had been buried longer than most people live. Halfway there my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Raymond. It was Mrs. Klein, my elderly neighbor. Walter, she whispered, panic in her voice. That man, the one you warned me about, he's at your door, he's yelling your name. I slammed the brakes. Emily grabbed my arm. Dad, don't go back, please. This is a trap. I looked at her, then at the road stretching forward. And then I turned the car around, because if I didn't face him now, he would only get worse. When we arrived, Raymond was sitting on the front steps, head buried in his hands. He looked nothing like the calm man I'd first met. His hair was uncombed, his eyes were red, his clothes wrinkled like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw me, he stood up fast. Walter, he said, voice breaking. I need to talk to you. Emily stood behind me. Say it here, I said. Everything you have to say, you say in front of her. Raymond clenched his jaw, then nodded. I know you found her, he said. And you can't talk to her, I stared at him. Why? Because she's all I have left, he snapped. And if you change her story, you destroy me. I took a step closer. If the truth destroys you, then maybe it was never the truth to begin with. That's when his face changed, and that's when he crossed a line I can never forget. I have insurance, he said quietly, looking at Emily. Photos. Things that would ruin her, Emily gasped. I felt something snap inside my chest. Raymond pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. Fake images, manipulated, cruel, but convincing enough to destroy a reputation in seconds. If you talk to her, he said, if you go to the police, if you keep digging, I release them. I stood frozen. At 81 years old, after surviving wars, loss, and grief, I felt true fear for the first time, not for myself. For my daughter, what do you want? I asked. He didn't hesitate. I want you to stop, destroy what you have, and later we'll talk about money. Emily was crying now. I nodded slowly. Give me time. 1 hour, he said. Then I want proof. He walked away like a man who believed he'd already won. Emily collapsed into my arms, but as I held her, something else took shape inside me. A decision. I wasn't going to destroy the evidence. I was going to destroy the lie. And if you're listening right now, ask yourself this. What would you do if the truth could save your family, but revealing it could destroy someone you love? Tell me in the comments. I didn't sleep that night. Emily lay on the couch, eyes swollen from crying, her phone face down like it might bite her if it lit up again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall clock, listening to each second pass like a warning. Raymond thought he had me trapped. What he didn't understand was this. When you've lived more than 80 years, you learn that fear can either paralyze you or sharpen you. I called Frank before dawn. Speed it up, I said. Raymond knows we're close. He's threatening my daughter. Frank exhaled sharply. That changes things. 2 days later, my phone rang. Walter, Frank said, his voice different, alert. I found her. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. Where? Still in Alabama, he said, but not Birmingham, a smaller place outside the city. She's been living as Alina Brooks, same woman, no doubt. My heart pounded. Is she okay? She's alive, clear-minded, living alone. I looked at Emily. She heard everything. We're going, I said. We packed again, this time in silence, no second thoughts. We left through the back exit before sunrise and drove straight through the night. Emily slept in short bursts. I couldn't close my eyes. Every mile felt like a countdown. We arrived just after dawn. A quiet town, small houses. Neatly trimmed lawns, the kind of place where secrets hide in plain sight. We found the address, a small white house on the edge of town. Garden tended carefully, wind chimes hanging on the porch. I turned to Emily. Ready? She nodded. I knocked, footsteps inside. The door opened. An elderly woman stood there, white hair, thin frame, eyes tired but sharp. She looked at me and froze. Walter, she whispered. My chest tightened. Helen, she started crying immediately. Covered her mouth with her hand. I knew this day would come, she said. I just hoped I wouldn't live long enough to see it. She stepped aside. Come in. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and flowers, clean, quiet, lonely. We sat across from each other. How did you find me? She asked. I hired someone, I said, because too many lives were breaking apart. She nodded slowly. I've been running from this truth for 60 years. I leaned forward. Then stop running, tell me what really happened. She stood, walked into the kitchen, returned with coffee. Her hands trembled as she sat back down. We met in 1964, she said. At college, you were focused, ambitious, afraid of anything that could slow you down. I looked down. She wasn't wrong. When I found out I was pregnant, she continued, I tried to tell you. I went to your house. My stomach clenched. Your mother answered the door. I closed my eyes. She offered me money, Helen said, tears filling her eyes. A lot of money. She said if I disappeared, she'd take care of the child. If I didn't, she'd destroy my family. Emily covered her mouth. I was 19, Helen whispered. I was terrified. I swallowed hard. So you left? Yes, she said. I had the baby alone. I named him Raymond. My chest felt like it was collapsing. And when he was 11, she continued, I got sick, very sick. I didn't think I'd survive. She looked at me, shame written across her face. Your mother came back. She arranged his adoption, promised him a future. But there was a condition. I already knew the answer. That you disappear, I said. She nodded. Forever. Emily stood up. And you agreed, Helen cried. Because I thought I was dying, because I wanted my son to live. I clenched my fists. But you told him something before you left. Her shoulders shook. I told him who his father was, she whispered. And I lied. The room went silent. I told him you knew, she said, that you rejected us. That you abandoned him. My vision blurred. Why? I asked. Because I was angry, she sobbed. Because I needed someone to blame for my pain. I stood and turned toward the window, breathing hard. Because of that lie, I said quietly. My son hated me his entire life. Helen cried behind me. I know, and I'm so sorry. I turned back. You're coming with me. Her eyes widened. Where? To Atlanta, I said. You're going to tell Raymond the truth. She hesitated. What if he hates me? He already does, I said, but he deserves the truth. She nodded slowly. While she packed, my phone rang. Raymond, I know where you are, he said. It doesn't matter what she tells you. I know the truth. I took a deep breath. Your mother is alive, Raymond, and she's coming to tell you everything. Silence. Then the line went dead. I looked at Emily. He's scared, she said. No, I replied. He's about to lose the lie he built his life on. And I knew then the final confrontation was coming. The drive back to Atlanta felt longer than the first. Helen sat in the back seat, staring out the window, hands folded like she was praying without words. Emily sat beside her, quiet, conflicted, watching a woman who had unknowingly shaped all our lives. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was somewhere else. Raymond, he hadn't called again. That silence meant one thing: he was planning something. Halfway home, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the car. Old habits, old instincts. That's when I saw him, not Raymond, Frank. He pulled in 2 pumps away and walked over fast. We have a problem, he said quietly. I stepped out. How bad? He's been making moves, Frank said. The photos, he's lined up contacts, he's preparing to release them. My chest tightened. When? Soon, he said. He's desperate now, Helen overheard. She stepped out of the car, shaking. This is my fault, she said. I should never have lied. I looked at her. You can't undo the past. But you can stop it from poisoning the future. Frank lowered his voice. There's something else. I braced myself. Raymond has money, he said. A lot. He's been paying people off for years. Private records, legal silence. I nodded. Then we don't play quiet, Frank's eyebrows lifted. You want to go public, I want to go honest, I said. Emily stepped forward. What about me? I turned to her, my heart breaking. You stay out of it, no social media. No statements, you don't exist to him. She nodded reluctantly. We reached Atlanta by evening. I called Raymond. Tomorrow, I said. No threats, no games, just the truth. He laughed bitterly. You think the truth will save you? It already has, I said. You just don't know it yet. He agreed to meet. Neutral place. Coffee shop near the old train station. Public enough to keep things calm, private enough for words to land. That night Helen barely slept. She sat at the kitchen table, writing a letter she never finished. I don't know if he'll forgive me, she said. You're not asking for forgiveness, I replied. You're giving him freedom. Morning came too fast. We arrived early. Raymond was already there. He looked thinner, eyes hollow, hands shaking as he stirred his coffee again and again. When he saw Helen walk in, his spoon dropped. Mom, he whispered. She froze. Yes, she said softly. The room seemed to disappear. He stood up slowly like he might collapse. You're dead, he said. They told me you were dead. Helen stepped closer. They lied. He laughed once, sharp, broken. He turned to me. You did this. No, I said. The truth did. They sat. Helen spoke. She told him everything. The college, the pregnancy, my mother, the money, the illness, the adoption, the lie. Raymond listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stared at the table for a long time. So, he said finally, you both ruined my life. I leaned forward. No, lies did. He looked at Emily sitting across the room, quiet, invisible like we planned, and her. He asked, what about her? She's innocent, I said. And off limits, he smiled faintly. I used her because I was angry, because I wanted you to feel what I felt. Helen reached for his hand. He pulled away. I built my whole identity on that lie, he said. My rage, my success. My control. He looked at me. If I let this go, what am I left with? I answered honestly. Your life without poison in it. Silence again, then he stood up. I need time, he said. He walked out. I exhaled for the first time in days, but Frank didn't move. This isn't over, he said quietly. Men like him don't let go easily. And as if to prove him right, my phone buzzed. A notification. The first photo had been uploaded. Emily's name was tagged. My hands started shaking, because now the truth wasn't just personal, it was public. By the time we got back to the car, the damage had already begun. Emily's phone wouldn't stop buzzing, messages, missed calls. Notifications piling up like a storm she couldn't outrun. I took the phone from her hands and turned it off. No more, I said. You don't look at this. But I did. Raymond hadn't released everything. Not yet, just enough. A teaser. A threat wrapped in poison. Frank was already on his phone, moving fast. I'm calling a lawyer, he said, and a cyber team. We can get this contained. Contained. That word felt weak. Helen sat in the back seat, staring at her lap. This is my punishment, she whispered, for lying. No, I said firmly. This is the last lie fighting to survive. Back at the apartment, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called the church, not for prayer, for witnesses. By evening, my living room was full. Old friends, neighbors, people who had known me my entire life, people who trusted my name. I stood in front of them, hands shaking, heart pounding. My name is Walter Coleman, I said. I'm 81 years old, and today lies followed me into the light. They listened. I told them everything, about Helen, about Raymond, about my mother's choices, about the photos. No excuses, no hiding. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Mrs. Klein stood up. That man threatened your daughter, she said, and we're supposed to stay quiet. Others nodded. That night, something powerful happened. The truth spread faster than the lie. People started posting their support, not defending rumors, defending character. Decades of kindness don't disappear overnight. Emily's name began to clear. Raymond panicked. He called me after midnight. You turned them against me, he said. No, I replied. You did that yourself. You think you've won, he snapped. I still have leverage. You don't, I said calmly, because tomorrow morning your mother is going public. Silence. You wouldn't, he whispered. I already did, I said. Helen had recorded a video. One take, no edits, no tears forced, just truth. By morning it was everywhere. Raymond's story collapsed. Sponsors pulled out, deals froze. People asked questions he couldn't control. He showed up at my door that afternoon. No threats this time, just exhaustion. I don't know who I am without the anger, he said quietly. I looked at him. Then now you get to find out, he looked at Emily. I'm sorry, she nodded, nothing more, because forgiveness doesn't always need words. That evening Frank called. He's done, he said. Legally, socially, financially. I sat down, suddenly feeling every year of my age, but as the sun set, something unexpected happened. Raymond sent one final message, not to threaten, to ask, can we talk again someday? I didn't answer right away, because some endings aren't meant to be rushed. If you're still with me, ask yourself, is truth worth the damage it causes, or only the damage it prevents? Tell me what you think in the comments. Days passed without noise, no calls, no threats, no headlines. The silence felt unfamiliar but welcome. Emily stayed with me. She moved around the apartment differently now, lighter, like she wasn't constantly bracing for impact. Helen, on the other hand, struggled. She sat by the window most mornings, watching people pass like she was afraid to re-enter the world. I took his childhood from him, she said one afternoon. I don't know how to give it back. You can't, I replied gently, but you gave him something else, the truth. She nodded, but the guilt didn't leave her eyes. One evening Raymond called, not to argue, not to threaten, just to talk. We met alone, no Frank, no lawyers, just two old wounds finally breathing. He looked smaller, stripped of the armor he'd worn for decades. I spent my whole life proving I was unwanted, he said. Turns out I was lied to. That anger kept you alive, I said, but it also kept you trapped. He looked down. I don't know how to let it go. I told him something my father once told me after the war. Anger is useful in storms, I said, but you don't build a home in it. He didn't reply, just nodded. Before leaving, he stopped at the door. I deleted everything, he said. Every copy, every backup. I studied his face. He was telling the truth. When he left, Helen cried quietly, not in relief, in grief. That night, Emily sat beside me on the couch. You didn't have to protect me like that, she said. Yes, I did, I answered. That's what fathers do. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Thank you for choosing truth, she whispered. I looked at her and realized something important. This wasn't about the past anymore. It was about what kind of ending we choose. The next morning I received a handwritten letter from Raymond. He wrote about therapy, about rebuilding, about learning who he might have been without hate. At the bottom, one sentence stood out. I don't forgive yet, but I understand. Sometimes that's enough to start healing. I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside an old photograph of my mother. I didn't hate her anymore. I understood her fear, even if I didn't forgive her choices. Because understanding doesn't erase consequences. It just lets you move forward without chains. And as I sat there, watching the morning light fill the room, I knew the hardest part was still ahead. Forgiveness, not his, mine. If you want to hear how this finally ends, and what choice I made that changed everything, the morning sun filtered through the curtains as I took a deep breath. Today, everything would either break or begin to heal. I called Raymond. He answered after a long pause. Walter, he said. His voice was softer than before, cautious, wary. Raymond, it's time, I said. Time to see the truth, face it fully. We met in my living room. Helen stayed quietly in the corner, Emily beside me. Raymond entered slowly, eyes scanning the room as if expecting a trap. There was none, only honesty waiting. I handed him the documents, receipts, adoption papers, letters. Every single piece of proof. He read them slowly. Every line chipped away at the wall he had built around himself. I don't know what to say, he whispered. His hands shook. 60 years, I wasted 60 years hating someone who never did anything. Yes, I said softly, but now you know, now we can try to move forward. Tears filled his eyes. For the first time, the rage, the fear, the hurt, it all melted into something raw, human, real. He looked at Helen, sitting quietly, fragile and trembling. Mom, he asked. Helen nodded, her lips quivered. I lied, Raymond. I blamed your father. I thought I was protecting you, but I only caused pain. Raymond's shoulders slumped. Silence fell over the room. Then slowly he stepped forward and hugged her. Not perfectly, not immediately healed, but he hugged her. And for the first time in decades, a connection was restored. He turned to me, his eyes searching. I don't know if I can forgive everything yet, but I see now. You weren't the enemy. I nodded. I don't expect perfection, just a start. And that's enough. Emily came closer and took his hand. We're family, she said, her voice quiet but strong. Strange, late, messy family, but family nonetheless. A faint smile broke through the tension. Raymond let it linger. We all let it linger. Weeks passed. The house grew lighter. Conversations replaced silence. Laughter, hesitant but real, began to echo. I watched Helen tending her small garden by the window. She was peaceful, finally free from the fear that had haunted her for 40 years. Raymond and Emily spent evenings talking about their lives, rebuilding trust as siblings. No rush, no pressure, just presence and me. I realized something profound. The past doesn't disappear, it leaves scars, but scars can remind you that survival, understanding, and love are stronger than hate. At 81, I finally understood the power of truth, not lies. Not revenge, truth, brutal, painful, and freeing. And as I sat there holding Emily's hand, watching Raymond laugh quietly with Helen, I felt a weight lift. Life doesn't give second chances often, but when it does, you take them. If my story touched your heart, think about this. Who in your life is carrying pain from a lie? Who deserves the truth, even if it comes late? Thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Every story shared here is real, raw, and human. And every story is a chance to learn, to heal, and to hope. Until the next story.